Chapter 4957 looked down on the world. Yunchujia's body trembled. At this moment, she felt that she was a piece of trash. No. She would never let the tragedy of puppet number 1, number 2, and number 3 happen again. In her eyes, puppet number 4 and puppet number 5 were like other dumb cuties. They were living beings and were her companions. Almost at the same time, there were purple lightning crackling in her eyes. The strong killing intent from her body made Yuan Ji and the others beside her sit on the ground, staring at Yunchujo with their mouths agape. The people from the Divine Devil Hall could not help but step back. Although they did not know what had happened to Yunchujo, the trembling from the depths of their souls made them lose the courage to continue fighting. Yunchujo said to puppet number 4 and puppet number 5, "No need. They are just a bunch of trash. Let me do it." Although puppet number 4 and puppet number 5 had gained sentience, their sentience was still limited. They were a little confused and could not understand what had happened. Yunchujo ignored them and looked at the people of the Divine Devil Hall. The people of the Divine Devil Hall did not know how to describe Yunchujia's current gaze. Even using words like looking down on the world was not enough to describe her current aura. It was as if they were just a group of ants in front of her. One of the golden-masked men said in a trembling voice, "No, don't panic. She is deliberately mystifying. Let's attack together." When the other golden-masked men heard this, they immediately released their spiritual beasts and attacked Yunchujo. Yuan Ji's heart trembled. It was over. Although this troublemaker looked like a real person, it was impossible for her to be a match for so many people. Just as he was about to get up and bring his subordinates to help, he fell to the ground again with his mouth agape. He saw dozens of flying swords, killing people on their own. Had they become spirits? He wanted to find Yunchujia's figure, but he only caught an afterimage. Wherever the afterimage passed, there were corpses of the people from the Divine Devil Temple. The golden-masked men were already shrouded in great fear. They no longer cared about the mission and wanted to escape in panic. However, their heads were cut off by the flying swords within a few feet. Yuan Ji watched with his mouth agape. He had a guess that the dozens of swords were all controlled by Yunchujo. Oh God, 1, 2, 10, that was a total of 77 to 49 flying swords. This one-sided massacre only lasted for half an hour. No one from the Divine Devil Hall survived. Yunchujo put away the flying sword and the large kitchen knife, and slowly turned to look at Yuan Ji. That cold and piercing gaze made Yuan Ji's heart sink to the bottom of the valley. It was over, this troublemaker, no. Was the female devil going to kill him too? Yunchujia's emotionless voice sounded, "Don't have any wicked thoughts, or I'll kill you." Before Yuan Ji could understand what Yunchujo meant, Yunchujo closed her eyes and fainted. However, the moment Yunchujo fell to the ground, puppet number 4 and puppet number 5 caught her and placed her on the giant rabbit's body. Yuan Ji gulped and stood up after a long while. His subordinates were no better. They looked at Yunchujo who was on the giant rabbit in fear. Oh God, what happened to Yunchujo just now? This was too scary. She was simply inhuman. Chapter 4958, The Bird That Can Talk. Yunchujia's stupid and adorable people automatically protected Yunchujo in the middle, vigilantly staring at Yuan Ji and the others. At this moment, Yuan Ji's heart was filled with an indescribable feeling. He felt that it was necessary to have a good talk with their pavilion master. This kind of Yunchujo was not someone he could provoke. Although he did not know what had happened to Yunchujo just now, there was a 90% chance that there was a seal in her body. This meant that her identity was definitely not simple. The pavilion master was simply asking for trouble by provoking her, not to mention the even more perverted debeiming. He calmed his emotions and said to the dumb cubs, "Don't worry, I won't harm her." Xiao Hanyo was not afraid of being exposed anymore. He snorted coldly, "It better be so, or else I'll kill you." Yuan Ji, a talking bird? However, he was already numb. That female devil had too many secrets, so it was not strange for anything to happen to her. He smiled bitterly and said, "Don't look at the people from the Divine Devil Hall who were killed by her. Maybe the Divine Devil Hall will send people over. So, we are now in the same boat. Besides, she poisoned us. If she dies, we won't be able to live either." The little black bird stared at Yuan Ji with its puzzled eyes. Seeing that what he said did not seem to be a lie, it did not say anything. Yuan Ji thought for a moment, "Well, how long will it take for your master to wake up? What should we do next?" The little black bird thought for a moment, "It's hard to say. She might wake up very soon, or it might take 2 or 3 days. Let's go find the pretty boy first." Yuan Ji wanted to laugh when he heard the little black bird say, "Gigolo," but he felt that what it said made sense. No matter what, he had to find Di Biming first. He no longer had the courage to go against Yun Chuzhou. He calculated in his heart that if he could help Yun Chuzhou find Di Biming, she would owe him a favor. Maybe she could let the pavilion master off in the future. Moreover, they had been poisoned by her. He was still counting on her to detoxify them. Yuan Ji immediately brought his subordinates and dumb cuties to look for Di Biming's traces. Who would have thought that there were actually people from the Divine Devil Hall surrounding them from behind? There were at least 1,000 of them. Yuan Ji was instantly dumbfounded. It seemed that these people should be sent by the Divine Devil Hall later. This time, they were really going to die. The leader of the purple-masked men stared at Yuan Ji with a sinister gaze. "Is your Lan family planning to completely make an enemy out of our Divine Devil Hall? Also, how did the people from before die?" Just as Yuan Ji did not know how to answer, Yun Chuzhou, who was lying on the giant rabbit's back, opened her eyes. After a moment of confusion, she sat up weakly. "How do you think they died?" "Take a guess," Yun Chuzhou said with some contempt. Her heart was like a beeping dog. Why did so many people come out? Her body was very weak now. Even if she was stimulated, she wouldn't be able to stimulate her potential anymore. The purple-masked man snorted. "I don't have the patience. I'll know everything after I catch you. Go." "Wait a minute. The one who died earlier is called Qi Sha. What's your name?" Yun Chuzhou asked, obviously trying to stall for time. The purple-masked man said with contempt, "Im Chi Dai. Dementia? You really know your own limits." Yun Chuzhou laughed while holding her stomach. She almost rolled off the giant rabbit's back. Chapter 49-59 Actually bullied my little sister Jiu. Yuan Ji was speechless as he looked at He Xinjiu, who was laughing so hard that her flowers were trembling. He thought to himself, "This fellow is really big-hearted." At this time, he still had the mood to laugh at her name. However, when he thought of Yun Chuzhi's domineering aura from before, he felt that he was just eating salt and worrying about nothing. She could do whatever she wanted to do. After all, she was a pervert. When Qi Dai heard Yun Chuzhi's words, he was naturally furious, especially when he saw Yun Chuzhi's silly cubs rolling on the ground in joy. He immediately became angry out of embarrassment. "Yun Chuzhou, I won't argue with you. Soon, you won't be able to laugh anymore. Go." Following Qi Dai's order, the people of the Divine Devil Hall swarmed forward. He Xinjiu had no choice but to summon the demonic beasts again. Yuan Ji saw this and said anxiously, "Why did you release them? Hurry up and become a pervert." "Yun Chuzhou, you are the one who is perverted, your whole family is perverted." She glanced at Yuan Ji and said sorrowfully, "I'm powerless now. You'd better seek your own fortune. Otherwise, if you offer me to them, you might still have a way to live." At this point, the guy's eyes lit up and he immediately blinked at Yuan Ji. Yuan Ji was blessed and immediately understood her meaning. He immediately pulled Yun Chuzhou down from the giant rabbit and shouted, "Stop! Or I will kill Yun Chuzhou. You will get nothing." Qi Dai was shocked and immediately asked his men to stop. Yuan Ji's men were dumbfounded. Was Lord Yuan Ji tired of living? He even dared to kidnap the female devil. Yun Chujia's dumb cuties were connected to her mind. They knew that Yuan Ji was acting, so they didn't move much. Yun Chuzhou shouted in exasperation, "Yuan Ji, are you crazy? Let me go." Yuan Ji said coldly, "If you don't do it for yourself, heaven and earth will destroy you. Yun Chuzhou, accept your fate." Yun Chuzhou thought to herself, TSK, this Yuan Ji was a good actor. Chi Dai frowned, "If you hand Yun Chuzhou over to me, I'll let you guys leave." Yuan Ji sneered, "How do I know if you're lying to me? How about this, I'll bring Yun Chuzhou out of the wilderness. When we reach the edge of the wilderness, I'll naturally hand her over to you guys." Chi Dai was stunned at first, then he sneered, "If we reach the hinterland, these demonic beasts will recover their strength. Do you think I haven't seen through your little tricks? Go." Yun Chuzhou cursed inwardly. This Chi Dai was not stupid at all. This time, they were really going to be finished. Yun Chuzhou turned her head and saw Xue Wuji, who was dressed in red, walking towards them casually. Behind Xue Wuji was Di Baiming, whose face was as pale as a sheet of paper. And Feng followed behind him worriedly. Di Baiming's gaze met Yun Chujia's. Both of their eyes were filled with worry and heartache. Xue Wuji and the other two were hiding far away from here, but Di Baiming suddenly felt uneasy. He asked Xue Wuji to send a voice transmission talisman to Yun Chuzhou, but for some reason, it did not work. Di Baiming forced Xue Wuji and Enfeng to lead him to find Yun Chuzhou. Xue Wuji and Enfeng could not dissuade him, so they could only do as he said. Chi Dai was stunned when he saw Xue Wuji and the other two. Then, he said arrogantly, "You came just in time, so that I don't have to waste my energy to find you. Go. Leave no one alive." Chapter 4960, Remember what I've told you before. Xue Wuji smiled wickedly. TSK, with just you. Today, I'll let you see how powerful this young master is. As Xue Wuji spoke, the spirit energy in his hand transformed into a huge skeleton. The skeleton charged straight towards Chi Dai. Although it was only a spirit energy skeleton, it emitted a terrifying pressure. Chi Dai's heart sank. He did not dare to be careless and immediately summoned his spiritual beast to fight with Xue Wuji. Although Yun Chujia's spiritual power was weaker, she still had good eyesight. She could tell that the purple-masked man was no match for Xue Wuji. However, the problem was that there were too many people. What should she do? At this moment, Di Baiming released a golden dragon from his spiritual beast pouch. The dragon charged towards the people of the Divine Devil Hall in a majestic manner. Yun Chuzhou was stunned. A little perverted dragon? This bastard's heart immediately felt a little sour. They were both divine beasts, but why were the white tiger and little bastard in his hands not so cool? Not to mention that there was a phoenix egg that had not hatched yet. When the cat cub and little bastard received Yun Chujia's spiritual sense, they immediately felt a little humiliated and immediately joined the battle. Yun Chuzhou knew that even so, due to the huge difference in numbers, her side would still suffer a crushing defeat. As expected, with the passage of time, Yun Chujia's side's defeat was obvious. Whether it was Xue Wuji or the stupid cuties, they were all injured to varying degrees. Puppet number 4 and puppet number 5 proposed to self-destruct again so that Yun Chuzhou could escape. Yun Chuzhou simply put them into her storage ring to prevent them from really self-destructing. Furthermore, there were too many people coming this time. Even if they self-destructed, it might not be of much use. This fellow was so anxious that she was spinning in circles. Not only did she not unleash her potential, she was also very weak due to using too much strength previously. Could it be that she was really going to die this time? Just as Yun Chuzhou was spinning in circles anxiously, Di Baiming grabbed her hand. The icy cold touch made Yun Chuzhou shiver. She turned her head and comforted him, "Prince Charming, don't worry. I will become abnormal very soon. A bunch of rookies are no match for me." Di Baiming kissed her forehead gently and said slowly, "Remember what I told you before. Don't worry about me. Before Yun Chujo could react to Di Baiming's words, Di Baiming let go of her hand. Then, he rushed to the battlefield like a white ray of light. Di Baiming's ink-like hair turned white in an instant. He turned around and wanted to smile at Yun Chujo. However, before he could smile, he closed his eyes and fell to the ground. Yun Chujia's pupils dilated. She staggered and rushed to Di Baiming. Her trembling hand reached towards Di Baiming's nose, but there was no longer any breath. She shouted at the Guai Chao in her dantian, juice. Guai Chao had never seen Yun Chujo like this before. He did not dare to hesitate and quickly condensed a drop of liquid. Yun Chujo fed the liquid to Di Baiming's mouth, but she realized that the liquid could not be swallowed. She leaned over and kissed Di Baiming's cold lips, feeding the liquid to him. It was unknown if the Guai Chao's liquid had taken effect, but Di Baiming's chest finally heaved slightly. Yun Chujo shouted at the Guai Chao again, the liquid. Guai Chao had no choice but to squeeze out another drop of the liquid. Yun Chujo fed it to Di Baiming again, but this time there was no obvious reaction. Chapter 49-61, You Are Not Wrong. Guai Chao used his courage to convey the message to Yun Chujo. The gist of it was that it would be useless even if there was too much liquid. Although Yun Chujo did not understand Guai Chao's words, she could roughly guess Di Baiming's situation. She hugged Di Baiming and tears streamed down her face. Prince Charming, I was wrong. I shouldn't have disobeyed you. If I didn't come here rashly, you wouldn't be like this. I thought everything was within my calculations. In reality, I was just pretending to be smart. I'm just an idiot. My Prince Charming, wake up. I'll listen to you in everything from now on. I won't mess around anymore. Xue Wuji saw that Yun Chujo was crying sadly and advised her, Little sister Jo, this isn't your fault. Even if you didn't come, if the people from the Divine Devil Hall found us, the facial paralysis would also be like this. Moreover, if you didn't kill so many people, even if the facial paralysis went crazy, he might not have been able to kill them all. So not only did you not do anything wrong, you even made a contribution. And Feng said from the side, Yes, Miss Jo. If it wasn't for you, we might have been found a few days ago. At that time, Your Excellency's health was even worse, so you didn't do anything wrong. However, Yun Chujo couldn't listen to him. When she saw Di Baiming's silver hair and how his life was hanging by a thread, her heart was filled with guilt and self-blame. To be exact, she would rather feel guilty and self-blame. Only then would she be able to alleviate the fear and despair in her heart. She was afraid that Di Baiming would never wake up again. She was afraid that Di Baiming would really die just like that. A wave of dizziness struck her. Yun Chujo hugged Di Baiming and fainted on the ground. Xue Wuji sighed. This pair of doomed lovebirds. He looked at Yuan Ji. Let's leave this place first. Yuan Ji naturally did not have any objections. He did not even know what he should do now. In the end, Yuan Ji put the demonic beasts that were about to be frozen into ice sculptures into the spirit beast bags. Fortunately, he could put them into the spirit beast bags without recognizing them as his master. Otherwise, things would not be so easy. As for Hei Xinjia's dumb cuties, due to their high rank, he couldn't keep them even if he wanted to. However, he didn't dare to try. Therefore, the group headed towards the edge of the deep region. As long as they reached the hinterland, with these demon beasts, they could at least guarantee their lives. Half a day later, Yun Chujo finally woke up. Xue Wuji was afraid that she would go to the ends of the earth again, so he quickly advised, Little sister Jo, what I said before is true. You really didn't do anything wrong. Yun Chujo nodded numbly. Then, she bit her index finger with her mouth and dripped the blood into Di Baiming's mouth. Although Yuan Ji did not understand why Yun Chujo fed Di Baiming her own blood, he knew that their pavilion master would not be able to win Yun Chujia's heart no matter what. Di Baiming's condition did not improve much. If it was not for the slight breathing, he would be no different from a dead person. After a while, Shui Wuji advised, little sister Jiu, you have to pull yourself together. If not, you will also fall sick and your face will be paralyzed. Yun Chujiu nodded, I understand. Yuan Ji gathered his courage and said, be Miss Jiu, since the Divine Devil Temple has already sent a wave of reinforcements, they might even send people over. We'd better hurry to the hinterland as soon as possible to avoid falling into a disadvantageous situation. He originally wanted to address her as Miss Jiu, but in the end, he chose to address her as Feng. Chapter 4962 could only rely on acting cute. Hearing Yuan Ji's words, Yun Chujiu nodded again. Since that's the case, let's hurry up and move. Yuan Ji saw that Yun Chujiu had changed from her usual carefree appearance, and he more or less sighed in his heart. He sighed and urged everyone to hurry up and move. When the silly cuties saw Yun Chujiu's appearance, they all comforted her in their spiritual senses. Yun Chujiu didn't say anything and put them all into her spirit beast pouch. The little dragon was now a homeless child, so she could only thicken her skin and enter Yun Chujiu's spirit beast pouch. When Dog 2 saw the little dragon was brought in, it immediately said to Peach Blossom, female, don't blame me for not warning you. This little dragon is the worst. Don't be fooled by it. Peach Blossom said absent-mindedly, go away. I don't want to talk to you. Dog 2 immediately had a bad premonition, especially when it saw the little dragon telling Peach Blossom about its heroic deeds. This premonition became even stronger. It felt that the little dragon was very displeasing to the eye, so it was best to find a way to chase it out. However, even if it had 100 guts, it would not dare to offend Yun Chujiu at this time. It rolled its dog eyes. If Di Baiming, that evil star, woke up, the little lecherous dragon would naturally scram. However, how could it make Di Baiming wake up faster? But Face thought for a long time but could not think of a way. However, it felt that it was necessary to gain a good impression of Yun Chujiu. After all, it was now such a waste, and it could only rely on acting cute to live. Little fairy, didn't your excellency say something to you before he fainted? Have you forgotten? He said that he wanted you to remember what he said to you before. Don't worry about him. Is he referring to the fact that he won't die? But Face said eagerly. Yun Chujiu was stunned when she heard that. She was too worried about Di Baiming, so she forgot about that sentence. She remembered Di Baiming's comforting smile before he fainted, and her tears flowed down again. He was afraid that she would be worried, and that was why he was like this. She could not let him down. She had to pull herself together and think of a way to let him recover as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Yun Chujiu's mood was slightly better. Only then did she have the mood to think of other things. She asked Shui Wuji, Brother Wuji, how did you find us? Shui Wuji saw that Yun Chujiu's condition was much better than before and immediately felt relieved. He said, the facial paralysis felt uneasy. He asked me to send you a voice transmission talisman, but it did not succeed, so he forced us to bring him to find you. Yun Chujiu frowned slightly. The voice transmission talisman didn't work? How was this possible? She took out the voice transmission talisman and tried to send it to Shui Wuji, but it didn't work. Something was wrong. Shui Wuji had sent her a voice transmission talisman before, so why did it suddenly not work? At this moment, Yuan Ji said in horror, Heaven, heaven, heaven. Everyone looked up when they heard that and saw countless huge rocks floating in the sky. Yun Chujiu suddenly understood why the ground in the deep region was full of potholes and many rocks were scattered around. So that was how it came about. However, where did the rocks floating in the sky come from? However, the most important thing now was not to think about this, but how to avoid these stones. Otherwise, they would be smashed into minced meat. Yuan Ji took out a protective array. Although this protective array was useless against the attacks of the Divine Devil Hall, he felt that it was not a problem to block these stones. Chapter 4963. Go Weiba tale was going to amaze everyone. However, Yun Chujiu was not as optimistic as he was. The situation in the deep region was not recorded in the book, which meant that the last stone rain had happened a long time ago. Since it had happened a long time ago, there were still potholes on the ground, which meant that the power at that time was very strong. This kind of low-grade protective array could not stop it at all. Therefore, she asked everyone to set up a spiritual energy shield inside the protective array to prevent any accidents. Yuan Ji felt that Yun Chuzhou was overdoing it, but he still ordered his men to do as she said. Just when everyone set up the spiritual energy shield, the stones came crashing down. When the stones were getting closer and closer, everyone was shocked to find that the stones were too big. It was as big as a small mountain. The protective array was smashed by a big rock and immediately broke. Fortunately, everyone held on to their spiritual energy shields, or else they would have been smashed. Yuan Ji had a face full of lingering fear. Fortunately, he listened to the female devil's words, or else it would have been bad. He thought that it would be over, but who would have thought that the rocks that had been smashed into the deep pit would float up again and suddenly fall down again? Yuan Ji, this was because they were afraid that they would not die. Although their spiritual energy barrier had once again withstood the giant rock, looking at the giant rock that had once again floated up, everyone's heart could not help but be shrouded in the shadow of death. From the looks of it, these giant rocks were repeating themselves and had no intention of stopping. If they continued to passively use their spiritual energy barrier to support themselves, they would definitely be dragged to death in the end. Yun Chuzhou thought for a moment and said, "There's still a day's journey to the edge of this place. We can't just sit here and wait for death. We must hurry and leave this place." "Little sister Jiu, what you said makes sense. But what should we do if these huge rocks hit us?" Shui Wuji said with a troubled expression. "Well, release our spiritual beasts in batches and let them float above our heads. Once a huge rock falls, well, let them work together to slow down the speed of the huge rock's descent. This way, well, completely use the time we have to dodge," Yun Chuzhou said. When everyone heard this, they felt that this was a good idea. Hence, they split into two batches and transformed into spiritual beasts to block the huge rock. Even though the huge rock was huge, the combined power of several spiritual beasts could slow down the speed of the huge rock's descent, allowing everyone to dodge. Yun Chuzhou took out some medicinal pills to replenish their spirit power. They could hold on for a while more, but they still couldn't hold on any longer. Shui Wuji suddenly slapped his thigh. Little sister Jiu, why didn't you release De Hua? De Hua's strength isn't bad, not to mention other things. Moreover, you're also abnormal. You can hold on for a while longer." Yun Chuzhou then remembered that Shui Wuji still did not know about De Hua's disappearance. She said with a wry smile, "Brother Wuji, De Hua is missing. I can only transform into a useless Gowei Batsao." Hearing Yun Chuzhou belittle it, the Guai Chao in her dantian immediately became angry. However, even though it was very angry, the Guai Chao's leaves were half dead and drooping. This was because the 2 drops of juice given to Yun Chuzhou were transformed from its essence, so its vitality was greatly damaged. Guai Chao snorted coldly in its heart. Even if its vitality was greatly damaged now, it was still of great use, alright? Stop talking nonsense and quickly let it out. Go Wei Ba tale was going to amaze everyone. Chapter 4964 was about to become a spiritual beast. Although Shui Wuji felt that it was unkind to laugh at this moment, he still laughed when he heard that Yun Chuzhou's spiritual beast was a Gowei Batsao. Yun Chuzhou glared at him fiercely. How could he still laugh at this time? Shui Wuji forced himself to stop laughing and said curiously, "Little sister Jiu, I've never seen a spiritual beast like Gowei Batsao. Let me see it." Yun Chuzhou wanted to ignore him, but she just happened to feel the unwillingness of Gowei Batsao. Although she didn't have much hope for Gowei Batsao, she still transformed her spiritual power into a huge purple Gowei Batsao. Shui Wuji stared at Gowei Batsao with his mouth agape. It really was Gowei Batsao. Yun Chuzhou said helplessly, "See? It's this useless thing." Before Shui Wuji could say anything, another huge rock began to fall from the sky. Everyone hurriedly released their spiritual beasts to stall for time. At this moment, a shocking scene happened. The huge rock actually stopped in the air. To be exact, it was held up by 2 leaves of Goei Batsao. After a dead silence, Shui Wuji opened his mouth and said, "Little sister Jiu, is this the useless thing you said?" Yuan Ji and the rest of the spiritual beasts could only delay the falling of the giant rock for a few breaths, but this Goei Batsao could hold the giant rock with only 2 leaves. If it was useless, then wouldn't their spiritual beasts be useless in a pile of trash? Yun Chujiu was also very surprised, but this guy was in a low mood now. She said indifferently, "It's only one advantage. It's okay." Goei Batsao angrily threw the huge rock to the side. It was so awesome that it actually said it was passable. This black-hearted wretched girl must be deliberately belittling it. Fortunately, Shui Wuji was very supportive. He shouted and shouted, "Little sister Jiu, you're too modest. How is this passable? My spiritual skeleton doesn't have as much strength as it does. I think this Goei Bakao's strength is even greater than De Hua's." The blade of grass on the top of Goei Batsao trembled. It felt that Shui Wuji was a good talker. If not for the fact that it had suffered a great loss of vitality, TSK, it would be very capable. Yun Chujiu nodded her head perfunctorily and used her spiritual sense to speak to Guai Chao, "Since you have such great strength, I'll leave the matter of the stone to you. You don't have to throw the stone to the side. You just need to slow down its falling speed so that it won't be unable to hold on any longer." Guai Chao knew that Yun Chujiu was in a bad mood, so although it was not praised and felt a little aggrieved, it still shook its leaves to express its agreement. Only then did Yun Chujiu realize that the color of the Guai Chao had dimmed a lot, and its leaves were also drooping. Knowing that it was caused by 2 drops of juice, she felt a little guilty. Hearing that, the little bit of grievance in Guai Chao's heart instantly disappeared. This smelly girl still had a conscience. At first, Yuan Ji was worried that although Goei Batsao was powerful, it wouldn't be able to last for long. However, he didn't expect that Goei Batsao was very smart. When there was no huge rock falling, its body would become very small. When the huge rock showed signs of floating again, it would become bigger again. This way, it would save a lot of spirit energy. Yuan Ji thought to himself, what kind of master has what kind of spiritual beast? This Goei Batsao is about to become a spirit. Chapter 4965, Goei Batsao. From the treasury. With the addition of Goei Batsao, everyone finally left the deep region and entered the hinterland. Everyone let out a long breath. This time, it could be said that they had narrowly escaped death. Although they could not guarantee their safety when they reached the hinterland, no matter what, when they reached the hinterland, at least the strength of the demonic beasts would recover. Even if they encountered people from the Divine Devil Hall, they would not be too passive. Yun Chujiu also let out a long breath. She asked Yuan Ji to release the demonic beasts and gave them a lot of pills to help them recover. Yun Chujiu thought about it and decided to rest in the hinterland for a period of time. After all, she still had the help of the demonic beasts in the hinterland. If she left the wilderness and was ambushed by the Divine Devil Hall, it would be a disaster. Moreover, there were mushrooms in the hinterland that informed her, so she could make arrangements in time. Yuan Ji and the others had already boarded the pirate ship, so they could only listen to Yun Chujiu's arrangements. Yun Chujiu placed Di Baiming in the tent. Seeing that his condition was still not improving, she bit her finger and dripped fresh blood into his mouth. What she did not notice was that there was a small stalk of spirit energy Goei Batsao lying on top of her head. It was only the size of a pinky cap. If she did not pay attention, she would not have noticed it at all. Goei Batsao had learned its lesson this time. Previously, when it was blocking the giant rock, it had deliberately kept a lot of spirit energy. This way, even if Yun Chujiu cancelled the supply of spirit energy, it could still maintain it for a period of time. Moreover, it had made itself so small, so it could last longer. Although its main body could not show off in Yun Chujiu's dantian, it was still pretty good to be able to walk outside in such a state. Of course, Yun Chujo did not know about all of this, because she had never heard of any family's spiritual beasts that would amass a small treasury. At this time, Shui Wuji called Yun Chujo out from outside, and Yun Chujo could only get up and leave the tent. As the tent's door was relatively low, it stuck Yun Chujia's hair, and the Gowei Batsao on her hair lost its balance and fell to the ground. Gowei Batsao wanted to chase after Yun Chujo, but it was afraid of being discovered, so it decided to stay in the tent for now. It jumped to Di Baiming's side and looked at Di Baiming, who was in an extremely miserable state. Its mouth twitched in its heart. Damn it! How did it threaten it previously? It thought that Go Weiba was afraid of him. Pooey! Go Weiba was not afraid of anyone. At this moment, Di Baiming's dantian began to emit a faint golden light, instantly enveloping his entire body in a layer of golden light. What a close call! What a close call! It would never speak nonsense again. The people outside the tent knew nothing about what was happening inside. Shui Wuji called Yun Chujo out to give her some food. Ever since Di Baiming's accident, Yun Chujo had hardly eaten anything. He was afraid that she wouldn't be able to hold on, so he specifically called her out. Yun Chujia's mood had already calmed down a lot, so she did not reject him. She took the food and started eating. Shui Wuji saw her like this and heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Little sister Jiu, facial paralysis is a pervert. You were frozen for such a long time before, but you were still alive and kicking. So relax, you should eat and drink. Otherwise, when he wakes up and sees that you are very haggard, he might vent his anger on me and the little lunatic. Yun Chujo nodded, I got it. Shui Wuji shook his head. Little sister Jiu was completely different from her usual self. There was not a trace of a smile on her face. It seemed that unless it was Di Baiming who woke up with a paralyzed face, she would always be like this. Chapter 4966, The Smartest Grass. Yun Chujo hastily ate something and then returned to the tent. However, she was surprised to find that Di Baiming's complexion was better and his pulse was stronger than before. Yun Chujo called Shui Wuji and Enfeng in to check. Both of them were very happy when they came in. Little sister Jiu, how is it? I told you that this facial paralysis would be fine, right? I think he will wake up soon. Don't worry, Shui Wuji advised. Yun Chujo nodded her head vigorously, and a smile finally appeared on her face. Shui Wuji and Enfeng finally heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Yun Chujo like this. Gowei Batsao, who was hiding in the corner of the tent, sneakily looked at Shui Wuji and Enfeng, hoping that they would leave as soon as possible so that it could find an opportunity to make a new home on He Xinjia's hair. Shui Wuji suddenly looked in its direction, almost scaring the Guai Chao to death. Shui Wuji frowned suspiciously and glanced around a few more times. He only looked away when he did not find anything wrong. Gowei Batsao was so scared that its leaves drooped down. It was so close, so close. It seemed that it had to be more careful. Shui Wuji was not that stupid. Shui Wuji and Enfeng comforted him for a while before they got up and left. Yun Chujo held Di Baiming's right hand and pressed her face against it. Although Di Baiming's hand was cold to the bone, she still could not bear to let go. Only by feeling his pulse could she calm down. Gowei Batsao had been watching from the corner, and a strange emotion arose in her heart. She could not explain it clearly. Was this the so-called love? Yun Chujo held Di Baiming's hand and fell asleep in a daze. She hadn't slept for several nights in a row before she fell asleep. A thought flashed through her mind. Why was she not as tired as before these few days? However, because of the drowsiness, she didn't have time to think carefully before falling asleep. Gowei Batsao saw that Yun Chujo was asleep and immediately jumped out from the corner. Now, in this tent, a living dead and a sleeping person was its world. It could show off as much as it wanted. Ha ha ha. Gowei Batsao felt that it was most likely the smartest grass in the world. Otherwise, why would it come up with such a good idea like a clone? It was not as stupid as the Great Void Mirror and the Black Bead. It had been cooped up in its dantian all this while, and it wanted to jump outside to its heart's content. Go Weiba hopped around for a while. Just as it was about to hide in Yunchujia's hair again, it saw strands of white mist rising above Di Baiming's dantian, forming a complicated pattern. It went straight for Di Baiming's glabella. Go Wei Butsao subconsciously felt that the smell of the white mist was familiar. Wasn't it the thing that it had absorbed from Di Baiming's body? Even if it used the grass leaf to think, it knew that this white seal was not a good thing. Go Wei Butsao almost subconsciously rushed towards the white mist, and the main body in the dantian also started to tremble violently, wanting to wake Yunchujiu up quickly. The white mist was hit by Go Wei Butsao, and the pattern dimmed quite a bit, but it still hid between Di Baiming's brows. Go Wei Butsao also dissipated due to this hit with all its strength. Chapter 49-67 Is she your sister? Yunchujiu was awakened by the pain. She looked around blankly and did not find anything unusual. She used her spiritual sense to look at the strange grass. She saw that the strange grass was waving its leaves vigorously. The emotions that were transmitted to her were also very anxious. However, it could not speak. Therefore, Yunchujiu could not guess what the strange grass was trying to say even after guessing for a long time. The Guai Chao could not help but feel a little discouraged. Now, it actually wished that it could speak. Forget it. Since the little girl could not understand what it meant, then she would just watch the follow-up. In any case, the white seal had been broken by it a lot, so it probably would not have much of an effect. Yunchujiu saw that the Guai Chao was no longer tormenting it. In addition to the sleepiness, she did not take this small episode seriously. The next morning, Yunchujiu, who was sleeping, felt a little cold. She suddenly opened her eyes and was pleasantly surprised to see that Di Baiming had actually woken up and was looking at her. Yunchujiu thought that she was dreaming. She rubbed her eyes and realized that Di Baiming had really woken up. She immediately sat up happily. Idol, you're awake? Are you feeling unwell? Yunchujiu wanted to hold Di Baiming's hand and check his pulse. However, before her hand touched Di Baiming's hand, she heard a bone-chilling voice, "Scram." Yunchujiu was stunned. Scram? She looked at Di Baiming and met a pair of bone-chilling eyes. There was no warmth or emotion in those eyes. It was as if she was looking at a stranger. Yunchujiu felt that Di Baiming might have just woken up and was a little confused. She said patiently, "Prince Charming, the people from the Divine Devil Hall have been killed by you. We are safe for the time being." Di Baiming frowned slightly. Divine Devil Hall? That's right. I was surrounded by the people from the Divine Devil Hall. But, who are you? I am Little Jiu. Did you forget about me? Yunchujiu said half-jokingly. I don't care if you're Little Jiu or Little Hachi. I've never had a woman by my side. Get lost. Di Baiming said coldly. Yunchujiu was really dumbfounded. What happened to the gigolo? She was afraid of provoking Di Baiming. After all, he had just woken up, so she said, "Okay, I'll leave now. I'll let Enfeng come in." After saying that, Yunchujiu walked out of the tent and said to Shui Wuji and Enfeng, "The gigolo is awake. You guys go in and take a look." He woke up so soon. I told you that the facial paralysis was a pervert. Shui Wuji saw that although Di Baiming's hair was still silver, the color of blood on his face had recovered a lot. He immediately smiled and said, "You're finally awake. Are you all right?" Di Baiming faintly acknowledged. Shui Wuji was already used to his cold appearance, so he did not mind it. He smacked his lips a few times and said, "You don't know that little sister Jiu was worried sick when you were unconscious." Di Baiming frowned slightly. Little sister Jiu? That little Jiu is your sister? Why haven't you mentioned it before? Hurry up and tell her to leave. I get annoyed whenever I see women. Shui Wuji, oh God, was there something wrong with his ears? What did he just hear? Enfeng, who was beside him, was also dumbfounded. Did their lord lose his memory? Shui Wuji swallowed his saliva and said with difficulty, "You don't remember little sister Jo?" Di Baiming snorted coldly. "Your sister, what do I remember for?" Chapter 4968, Are you serious? You really don't remember little sister Jo? Shui Wuji asked incredulously. Di Baiming said impatiently, "What little sister Jo, little 8, hurry up and let her leave." Shui Wuji was dumbfounded. He probed a few more times and finally came to a conclusion. Di Baiming had lost his memory. To be more precise, he had only forgotten Yunchujiu, but he remembered everything else clearly. Shui Wuji and Enfeng looked at each other. It was over. This person with facial paralysis had lost his memory. Little ninth sister was probably going to cry to death. Shui Wuji saw that Di Baiming looked a little tired, so he did not dare to say anything more. He let him continue to rest, and then he left the tent with Enfeng. Shui Wuji saw Yun Chujiu standing by the side alone, and his heart was very bitter. He walked over and said, "Little sister Jiu, you should know, right?" Yun Chujiu did not have any obvious expression on her face. "Know what?" "That facial paralysis, he lost his memory." Shui Wuji said through gritted teeth. Yun Chujiu's eyes widened. "Are you sure that he really lost his memory?" Shui Wuji nodded and sighed, "Little sister Jiu, don't be too sad. He may have lost his memory due to his injuries. However, I believe that this is only temporary. He will remember it very soon. He thinks that you are my sister. Then, you should stay in this identity for now." Shui Wuji's words stopped abruptly because he saw a strange smile on Yunchuji's face. Shui Wuji could not help but shiver. Little sister Jiu must have gone mad from the shock. Enfeng, who was standing at the side, also looked at Yunchujiu worriedly. Miss Jiu must have been too upset, so she must have been upset. "Little sister Jiu, are you okay?" Shui Wuji asked in a trembling voice. Yun Chujiu shook her head. "I'm fine, as long as he wakes up." "But, did he lose his memory?" "I know you're upset. If you're really upset, just cry." Shui Wuji felt that Yun Chujiu must be pretending to be calm. How pitiful. Yun Chujiu looked at Shui Wuji in confusion. "Why should I be upset? The facial paralysis has lost his memory. He doesn't remember you. How can you not be upset? Little sister Jiu, don't worry. When that facial paralysis regains his memory, it'll help you beat him up." Shui Wuji said angrily. However, Yun Chujiu giggled, which made Shui Wuji and Enfeng's hair stand on end. It's over, he's really gone mad." Yun Chujiu stopped laughing and said with a chuckle, "All I want is for the pretty boy to be safe and sound. Now that he has woken up, I'm more than happy. How can I be sad? But, he has lost his memory. He doesn't remember you." Shui Wuji felt that Yun Chujiu must be forcing herself to be strong, so he said worriedly. Yun Chujiu shrugged nonchalantly. "Forget it then. At most, it'll let him fall in love with me again. What's the big deal?" Shui Wuji, Enfeng, just as the two of them were in a daze, they saw Yun Chujiu rubbing her hands together. "By the way, I like to see the pretty boy being flirted with by me. It's not bad to be able to experience it again." Shui Wuji and Enfeng saw Yun Chujiu's eager look and immediately fed their worries and sympathy to the dogs. How would such a pervert need their worries and sympathy? And that facial paralysis, it was probably bad luck. While the two of them were still in a daze, Yun Chujiu entered the tent. Di Baiming was resting with his eyes closed. When he saw Yun Chujiu enter, impatience appeared on his face. "Didn't your brother tell you to leave?" Yun Chujiu smiled at him. "Let's get to know each other again. My name is Yun Chujiu, please advise me." Chapter 4969, not ugly little girl. When Di Biming saw Yun Chujia's bright smile, the word, scram, that was on the tip of his tongue could not be said out loud. He frowned. Since you are Shui Wuji's sister, why is his surname Shui and your surname Yun? Yun Chuzhou said with a smile, because he is my sworn brother, not my biological brother. Di Biming snorted, whether it is my biological brother or sworn brother, this is not a place for you to stay. Leave quickly. Yun Chuzhou smiled and said, okay, I will leave now. After saying that, Yun Chuzhou turned around and left the tent. Di Biming was stunned. He originally thought that the not-so-ugly little girl would pester him, but she actually left just like that? However, this kind of thought disappeared in a flash. She was just an insignificant person, there was no need to waste his mind. Yun Chuzhou went outside. Shui Wuji and Enfeng saw her faint smile and were completely relieved. As for Yuan Ji and his subordinates, ever since they arrived at the hinterland, they had tactfully stationed themselves about 2 miles away from them, so they did not know what happened here. Yun Chuzhou took out a recliner and lay down on it. She chewed on melon seeds as she pondered over her next plan. She did not care about the gigolo's amnesia. The gigolo could fall in love with her again after reincarnating, not to mention his amnesia. The most important thing now was the Divine Devil Hall. The Divine Devil Hall had lost more than 5,000 people this time, so they would probably send reinforcements soon. They had to make preparations early. It would be best if they could get some reinforcements. However, she was a piece of trash in the heavy cloud continent. Where could they get reinforcements? The guy thought for a moment and took out the voice transmission talisman of the Lan family's patriarch. Patriarch, it's been a long time. Have you missed me? Unfortunately, the Lan family's patriarch ignored her. He Xinzhou did not know what it meant to be reserved and what it meant to be embarrassed. She sent another message. Patriarch, I've killed more than 5,000 people of the Divine Devil Hall. Shouldn't you reward me? This time, the voice transmission talisman quickly received a reply. The old ancestor of the Lan family gritted his teeth and said, reward your ass. Yun Chuzhou, she did not know that the old ancestor of the Lan family was in a terrible state. He wished that he could strangle her to death. Due to the interference of the Divine Devil Hall, the Lan family was besieged from all sides. Naturally, he did not have a good tone. Patriarch, I take it that what you said just now was a compliment. Well, are you in a bad mood? Who provoked you? Tell me, and I'll help you take care of her. He Xinzhou sent another message with a smile. This time, the Lan family's patriarch replied unusually quickly. There was only one word, you. Yun Chuzhou, this fellow touched his nose guiltily and said slyly, old ancestor, I'm trapped in the wilderness and can't get out. Please send 1,000 people to save me. This time, the old ancestor of the Lan family replied even faster. There was only one word, scram. Yun Chuzhou angrily threw the voice transmission talisman into her storage ring. This damned old fox. He really didn't give her any face at all. The Lan family wouldn't be able to do anything. Could it be that they could only sit here and watch? He Xinzhou chewed on the ground full of melon seeds and didn't come up with any good ideas. However, because Di Biming had turned the situation around, other things were nothing to her. She would find a way sooner or later. Chapter 4970 was a little unhappy thinking of Di Biming. Yun Chuzhou suddenly remembered that Guai Chao had some abnormal behavior. Could it be that Guai Chao knew something? She quickly used her divine sense to communicate with Guai Chao. However, because Guai Chao could not speak and Di Biming's situation was more complicated, Yun Chuzhou could not guess what Guai Chao meant even after guessing for a long time. She could only guess that Di Biming did not lose his memory for no reason. Something must have happened. Soon, a day passed. During this period, Yun Chuzhou did not enter the tent again. Enfeng would go in to check on Di Biming from time to time. When Enfeng went in for the first time, Di Biming thought it was Yun Chuzhou. He was about to scold her when he realized it was Enfeng, so he swallowed his words. After that, every time someone entered, Di Biming would open his eyes and take a look. When he saw that it was Feng who entered every time, he felt unhappy for some reason. 2 days had passed in a row, and Di Biming was able to sit up. Moreover, he had more and more time to wake up. When Feng entered again, Di Biming hesitated for a moment and then asked stiffly, "Has Shui Wuji's sister left?" Feng's eyes twitched. How did His Majesty determine that the 9th Miss was the younger sister of the young master of Wuji? Well, she could be considered a younger sister. He told the truth, the 9th Miss did not leave. After all, the Divine Devil Hall must have set up an ambush outside. If she left rashly, it would be a disaster. Di Biming's expression immediately turned ugly. Feng was afraid that he would get angry, so he quickly said, "Your Majesty, the 9th Miss came to the wilderness to save us. Please let her stay here." Di Biming impatiently waved his hand. Feng saw that he did not say anything to let Yun Chuzhou leave, so he let out a sigh of relief and left. However, Feng never expected that the reason why a certain supremacy's expression was ugly was not because Yun Chuzhou did not leave, but because he felt that since the not-so-ugly girl did not leave, why did she not come to pester him again? Of course, he did not want to be pestered by her. He just felt that it was obvious that she had said, "Please instruct me," before, but she did not show up after that. It was really hypocritical. Yun Chuzhou did not know what a certain someone was thinking. Over the past 2 days, this fellow had been trying to think of a way to get out of the predicament, and on the other hand, he was trying to think of a way to appease those demonic beasts. After all, a portion of the demonic beasts in the deep region had lost their lives previously. He Xinjiu was afraid that these demonic beasts would be dissatisfied with her. As for the methods of appeasing them, they were nothing more than pills and praises. Of course, this fellow had been sending telepathic messages to the Lan clan's ancestor non-stop for the past 2 days. He did not care whether the ancestor replied or not. "Ancestor, blood is thicker than water. Your blood is flowing in my body. Old ancestor, as long as you send someone to save me, I promise to repay you with every drop of water. This is a business that will definitely make a profit." Royal City, Lan family's ancestral residence. The old ancestor of the Lan family received He Xinjia's voice transmission talisman again. He said to the masked elder who was standing by the side with his hands hanging down, "I've never seen such a thick-skinned person. She has caused so much trouble, yet she still has the face to beg me to save her. Master, what do you plan to do next?" The masked old man asked. He felt that if his master really did not plan to save her, she would have blocked the sound transmission talisman long ago. How could she still receive the message from Yun Chuzhou? Chapter 4971 was a clear path. The ancestor of the Lan family took a sip of tea to calm his anger and said, "Now, because of the Shinma Hall's mischief, the Mu family, Zhuang family, and Qi family have formed an alliance and invaded the Lan family's territory. If I recklessly send the main force to the wilderness, I'm afraid that our territory will be seized by the other 3 families. Therefore, this person must not be sent." The old man was a little puzzled. "Then you plan to ignore Yun Chuzhou? Let her die on her own?" "Master, to say something that should not be said, this Yun Chuzhou killed 5,000 people of the Divine Devil Hall with only 40 people. Such courage and strategy are even more suitable for that matter than young Master Luo Chen." The Lan family's ancestor did not have any displeased expression. "What you said makes sense. I have the same consideration, but there is indeed no way to free up manpower. However, it's not convenient for our Lan family to send people over, but I will show her the way." The old man was stunned. "What way?" The old ancestor of the Lan family put down the teacup and said slowly, "Zen sect." "Zen sect? This? Why would the Zen sect help Yun Chuzhou?" The old man asked in disbelief. "This is not within our consideration. I only need to give the little girl a hint. The rest will depend on her ability," the old ancestor said in an unfathomable manner. The old man was still a little puzzled. "Master, Since you have already made up your mind, why didn't you tell Yun Chujo when she asked for help 2 days ago? The Lan family's old ancestor snorted coldly. This troublemaker has caused so much trouble. It'll make her anxious and teach her a lesson. The old man, Master, is it really okay for you to be so childish? After the ancestor of the Lan family finished speaking, he also felt a little embarrassed. He immediately took out the voice transmission talisman and said coldly to Yun Chujo, the Lan family can't take care of themselves right now, so they can't spare anyone to save you. However, the Zen sect is not too far from the wilderness. You can ask the Zen sect for help. On the other side, Hei Shinjo, who was grumbling and cursing the ancestor of the Lan family, had her eyes lit up when she received the voice transmission talisman. That's right, there were also those old monks from the Zen sect. Humph. This old fox still had some conscience and knew how to show her the way. However, if she were to ask for help in a straightforward manner, those old monks would definitely say that the monks would jump out of the 3 realms and not reject her in the 5 elements, so she had to think of a way. Yun Chujo blinked her eyes and her gaze fell on the demon sky bell and the wooden fish on her wrist. She suddenly had an idea. Although she didn't have the voice transmission talisman of Master Wu, she had the voice transmission talisman of a master, so she took out the voice transmission talisman and said, Master Li, Master Liaowu, Master Li. Master Li, I intercepted the dawn bell and the sunset wooden fish from the purple-masked man of the Divine Devil Hall in the wilderness. Do you still want them? If you don't want them, I'll take them as my own. A quarter of an hour later, a master's anxious voice came from the voice transmission talisman, yes. Yes. Of course, Master Li. As long as you can give the dawn bell and the sunset wooden fish to our Zen sect, we will agree to any conditions. Yun Chujo snapped her fingers and suppressed the insidiousness in her heart. She said, Master Li, don't you know me well? How can a kind person like me take advantage of the situation? Don't worry. The dawn bell and 11 won wooden fish are yours. However, the people of the Divine Devil Hall are guarding outside the Wild Hope Wilderness, so it's best for your Zen sect to send more people to collect them. It doesn't need too many people, just 10,000 people will do. Chapter 4972 deserved to be bullied for the rest of his life. A moment later, Master Li replied, Almsgiver Yun, let me get this straight. This time, our Zen sect will help you get out of danger. Take it as a reward for breaking the dawn bell and Shiwan's wooden fish. If you go back on your words, then don't blame us for being merciless. Yun Chujo pursed her lips. This old monk was not stupid, but it was true. The Zen sect also had spies, so they naturally knew a thing or two about the situation in the wilderness. This guy picked up the voice transmission talisman and replied, no problem. We have a deal. Well, come quickly, or I won't be able to hold on. After hearing the affirmative reply from a Master Li, Yun Chujo put the voice transmission talisman into her storage ring. But Face asked eagerly, Little Fairy, do you really intend to return the demon sky bell and the little wooden fish to the Zen sect? Yun Chujo curled the corners of her mouth and asked, what do you think? But Face suddenly laughed strangely, Little Fairy, you are getting worse and worse. Yun Chujo ignored Butt Face. She thought to herself that she had not flirted with the pretty boy for the past 2 days. Now that things had come to a head, it was time to flirt with him. So, the guy entered the tent. Di Baiming's condition gradually improved. Although he could not stand up yet, he could still sit up. He was currently sitting cross-legged in meditation so that he could recover as soon as possible. When he heard someone enter, he thought it was still in Feng, so he did not open his eyes. Yun Chujo did not speak either. She sat on the ground and watched Di Baiming cultivate with a smile. Di Baiming felt her gaze and frowned slightly. He opened his eyes. When he saw that it was Yun Chujo, his expression immediately became even colder. Who let you in? Get out. Yun Chujo ignored him. Instead, she took out a spirit fruit and started munching on it. Di Baiming's expression turned even uglier. Didn't you hear what I said? Do you want me to slap you out? Yun Chujo took a few bites of the spirit fruit and said leisurely, "You made a mistake. This tent is mine. You're the one who took over the magpie's nest." Di Baiming's face froze. This was her tent. No wonder the pillow and quilt had a faint fragrance. And Feng heard this and quickly entered the tent. He thought to himself, "What's wrong with you? Help me leave immediately." "I don't want to stay here anymore," Di Baiming said with a stiff face. And Feng was dumbfounded. "Your Excellency, I didn't bring a tent with me. Besides, isn't Miss Jo's tent good? Why do you want to move out? I asked you to help me, so be it. Stop talking nonsense." Di Baiming's tone became cold. And Feng could only go forward and help Di Baiming up. However, he heard Yun Chuji's careless voice, "TSK, don't tell me you don't dare to stay here anymore. Are you afraid that it'll do something to this tent? You're getting more and more cowardly." Hearing that, Di Baiming snorted coldly. "You're thinking too much. I just don't want to stay here anymore." "Is that so? Why do I feel that you're too cowardly to stay here? Are you afraid that it'll force you to sleep with me in the middle of the night?" Yun Chujo revealed a malicious smile. Di Baiming looked at Yun Chuji's slightly provocative gaze and immediately shook off An Feng's hand. "Why are you helping me? Get out." An Feng's heart felt like it was bickering with a dog. He was the one who asked him to help her, all right? Now it was his fault. He deserved to be bullied by Miss Jo for the rest of his life. Chapter 4973, You Are Actually a Beast dressed in clothes. And Feng was speechless as he left the room. He felt that his actions were a little childish, so he decided to ignore Yun Chujo and continued to meditate. He wanted to kick Yun Chujo out, but this was her tent, so he didn't seem to have the right to kick her out. Forget it, if she was willing to stay, he would just ignore her. Hence, the two of them stayed in the same room without saying a word. Di Baiming sat cross-legged and cultivated. At first, Yun Chujo was still sitting and eating the spirit fruit. Later, she felt sleepy and decided to lie down on the blanket and fall asleep. These 2 days, she had been thinking of a way to get out of this and did not sleep much. Now that she was finally confident, she naturally fell asleep. At first, a certain someone was still focused on cultivating. Later, his gaze could not help but fall on Yun Chuji's sleeping face. A certain someone's mental activity was as follows: "This woman, she actually fell asleep just like that. Is she usually so casual? She actually fell asleep just like that in front of a man. She even drooled when she slept, how ugly. She did not even cover herself with the blanket, is she stupid?" A certain someone subconsciously picked up the blanket and wanted to cover Yun Chujo, but his hands stopped in midair. He didn't know this ugly girl, so why did he cover her with the blanket? So, a certain someone threw the blanket in his hand to the side. After a moment, he picked up the blanket again, thought about it, and threw it to the side. After repeating it a few times, a certain someone still covered Yun Chujo with the blanket. I was just afraid that this ugly girl would become sick and drag everyone down. Yes, that's right. Guai Chao in his dantian had been paying attention to the situation outside. When he saw the actions of a certain someone, he snorted coldly in his heart. This fiend should be thanking Go Weiba. If it had not diluted the white seal, his memories of the stinky girl would definitely have been sealed tightly. How would he still retain his instinctive good impression of the stinky girl? After it was done, it left. It hid itself and its name. This was the true portrayal of Go Weiba Dogtail. As Di Baiming's injuries had not fully recovered, he was very tired after cultivating for a while. Therefore, he lay down too. However, he deliberately lay far away from He Xinjiu. He slept until the next morning. Di Baiming felt that he had not slept so peacefully for a long time. He opened his eyes and froze. That was because he and Yun Chujo were lying under the same blanket. Yun Chujo was in his arms, and his hand was on her waist. It was obvious that he had slept with her for the whole night. How was this possible? Why did he sleep with this wretched girl for the whole night? He took a closer look and realized that there was no change in his position. It was obvious that this ugly girl had thrown herself into his arms. That must be it. Taking advantage of the fact that his body had not fully recovered and his vigilance was lower, that ugly girl shamelessly came over. It was really... He had to teach her a good lesson. He had to let her know what it meant to be shameless and what it meant for a man and a woman to not be intimate so that she would not pester him. Thinking of this, a certain honored guest planned to push Hei Shinjo away and then teach her a fair lesson. Just as a certain someone's hand was about to land on Yun Chujia's body, Yun Chujio woke up. She looked at the situation in front of her in a daze and started sobbing. You. Good for you, Di Baiming. I didn't expect you to be such a beast. You actually took advantage of me. I can't live anymore. A certain someone. Chapter 4974, It's clearly you. Before a certain someone could finish his sentence, Yun Chujio interrupted him. Woo woo woo, you're a human with a beast's heart. You're still trying to quibble. If I didn't wake up in time, what would you have done? Are you going to? Woo woo woo, I'm too ashamed to face anyone. I'm trying to, look, you even admitted it yourself. You just wanted to have an affair with me. I thought you were an aloof and holy Prince Charming, but it turns out you're a pervert. I'm not, you're not what? You still want to quibble. I clearly didn't cover myself with the blanket when I was asleep. Did this blanket grow legs on me? You're clearly the one who coveted my beauty and wanted to take advantage of me. Shameless. Di Baiming was so angry that his face turned red. He had clearly not done anything, so how could he be labeled as a pervert? He suddenly caught a glimpse of the cunning in Yun Chujia's eyes and immediately understood that she was doing it on purpose. He was so angry that his head was buzzing. This ugly girl was too crafty. His body was already very weak, and with such a strong breath, he actually fainted from anger. Hey Shinjo, heaven and earth, she didn't say anything. Why did he faint from anger? This guy quickly approached Di Baiming. Just as he was about to bite his finger and feed him some blood, a dazzling white light flashed, and Di Baiming was no longer on the ground. Instead, there was an unconscious little silver snake. Hey Shinjo, oh my god. She had made the gigolo turn into a snake. Fortunately, this had happened a few times in the past. Hei Shinjo was not too surprised. After thinking about it, it was not bad for the gigolo to turn into a snake. This way, it would be easier for her to protect him when he broke out of the encirclement. Moreover, she was going back to the Lan family. Neither the old fox nor Lan Luochen would take in the gigolo. Now that he had turned into a snake, it was much more convenient. However, she still had to put on a show in front of Yuan Ji. And Feng looked at the silver snake on the ground and looked at Yun Chujio with a complicated expression. Miss Jiu, what did you do to us? Yun Chujio touched her nose guiltily. Look at what you said. What can I do to him? He became a snake because he felt unworthy of being a human. The amnesiac snake, which had just woken up, choked and fainted again. And Feng's heart was filled with tears of sympathy for his venerable self. He had thought that his venerable self had lost his memory, and Miss Jiu would be in so much pain that she wished she could die. Who would have thought that his venerable self was the one in so much pain? Yun Chujio told Xue Wuji and Enfeng about her plan. The two of them also felt that Di Baiming turning into a snake was the safest way to follow Yun Chujio back to the Lan family, so they nodded in agreement. Thus, Yuan Ji and the others saw Yun Chujio and the other two looking for Di Baiming in panic. Yuan Ji quickly brought his people to help look for him, but they didn't find anything. There wasn't even a footprint. Yun Chujio, this drama queen, immediately howled. Xue Wuji comforted her, little sister Jiu, maybe that facial paralysis has another opportunity. Don't worry too much. Yun Chujio sobbed, Woo-woo, he was already seriously injured, and now he's nowhere to be found. How can I not worry? Where did he go? And Feng, who was at the side, cursed in his heart, where is he? He's inside your sleeve. Poor Lord. Chapter 4975, Don't make me look down on you. How would Yuan-ji know that someone could turn into a snake? He immediately believed it and comforted Yun Chujio. After a while, he saw that Yun Chujia's emotions had calmed down a little, so he asked, Miss Jo, what should we do next? I think the people from the Divine Devil Hall will make a move soon. Yun Chujio was about to gloat, but when she thought of her current character, she said listlessly, Don't worry, I have already asked for reinforcements. Reinforcements? You asked for help from the ancestor. The ancestor will send someone over. Yuan-ji asked in surprise. Yun Chujio shook her head. Not the Lan family, but the Zen sect. Yuan-ji was stunned. Zen sect? This was obviously not related to the Zen sect, okay? The Zen sect had never meddled in worldly affairs. Why would they help this time? However, this female devil in front of him was full of bad ideas. She might have used some wicked method to trick the Zen sect. He thought for a moment and said, Ninth Miss, is what you said true? Will the Zen sect really come to help? But I estimate that the Divine Devil Hall will send no less than 5,000 people. Even if the Zen sect is willing to help, they may not be a match for the Divine Devil Hall. By the way, Miss Jo, how many people will the Zen sect send to help? Yun Chujio still looked listless. Not many people, only about 10,000. Yuan-ji, 10,000? That was not much. Was the Zen sect crazy? How could they send so many people to help? Yuan-ji wanted to ask more questions, but Yun Chujio covered her face and said, Don't ask. I'm not in the mood now. Sob, I want to be alone. As she spoke, she covered her face and went into the tent. Yuan-ji sighed. Miss Jo must be too sad. How pitiful. He didn't know that Hei Shinjo was afraid that he would laugh out loud if he continued acting. Most importantly, the little silver snake in the sleeve had already woken up. She was afraid that she would be exposed, so she ran back to the tent. Yun Chujio took out the struggling little silver snake and said in a low and fierce voice, Gigolo, behave yourself. Or I will castrate you. A certain someone, Di Baiming, was about to call on Feng to come in when he heard Yun Chujio sneer, I've already activated the isolation array. No one will come to save you even if you scream. Pretty boy, I don't blame you for losing your memory. After all, this is not your subjective cause. However, if you don't even have an IQ, then I'll look down on you. The small silver snake's vertical pupils immediately turned cold. What do you mean? Yun Chujio sneered, what do I mean? If you have an IQ, you should have guessed my identity and guessed that everything I said to you was true. After all, you are such a tsundere person. If you didn't really agree and accept it, why would there be a woman by your side? The small silver snake's vertical pupils flashed, but it didn't say anything. What could he say? Could it be that he didn't have intelligence? Also, we're safe and sound now because we paid a huge price in exchange. If you have a brain, then cooperate with my arrangements. Don't let me look down on you. After saying that, Yun Chujio didn't bother with his reaction and directly turned around to leave. A certain lord was stunned for a moment. Although this ugly girl was shameless and lecherous, what she said made sense. A man could bend and stretch, so he would temporarily spare her. Chapter 4976 Flying Sword. Yun Chujio walked out of the tent. Seeing that Yuan-ji hadn't left yet, she walked over and asked, Yuan-ji, tell me about the time when I slaughtered everyone. Every time she stimulated her potential, Yun Chujio's memory of that time was very vague, which was why she asked this question. Yuan-ji thought of the situation at that time and couldn't help but shiver. Although this female devil wasn't as abnormal as Di Baiming, the scene at that time was also very horrifying. He described the situation in detail. Yun Chujia's blood was boiling when she heard it. She did not expect her little ninth fairy to be so arrogant and domineering. It was a pity that this potential would only be activated after being stimulated. It was really stifling. However, she could practice flying swords when she had the time. Although she could not use 49 swords for the time being, one more would increase her chances of winning. If it was just a simple sword move, she could have commanded 20 swords at the same time. However, she was using the sword techniques on the stone wall now. It was not easy for her to command 8 swords at the same time last time. It seemed that she really needed to practice. Besides, according to Yuan Ji, when she stimulated her potential, each of the flying swords could emit sword will. It was a heaven-defying operation. While Hei Xinjiu was pondering over the flying swords, Xiao Mogu said with her soul consciousness, "Master, the people of the Divine Devil Temple have reached the edge of the hinterland." Yun Chujiu frowned slightly. She had just talked to a master lay. It would take at least 3 days for the people of the Zen sect to reach the hinterland. She had to think of a way to delay them. Fortunately, the hinterland was big enough. As long as she played hide-and-seek with them carefully, there should be no problem. However, Xiao Mogu quickly poured cold water on her. "Master, the route of the Divine Devil Hall should be heading in our direction. They should have some way to track us." Yun Chujiu subconsciously thought that those people had brought another Shao Tian hyena. However, she thought that it should not be. This Shao Tian hyena was very rare. It was already good enough for the Divine Devil Hall to have one. Soon, Xiao Mogu replied, "Master, they didn't bring any spiritual pets." Yun Chujiu frowned. This was strange. How did the people of the Divine Devil Hall know that they were hiding here? Soon, she understood the crux of the problem. They were currently at the gathering place of the demon beast's nest. The people of the Divine Devil Hall should have received a report before and knew that there were many demon beasts around her. Thus, they guessed that they would be hiding here. Yun Chujiu rolled her eyes and decided to beat them at their own game. She immediately gathered the 5 beast kings together. These 5 unlucky fellows had seen Yun Chujiu's pervert before, and now they were even more obedient. Yun Chujiu told them what she thought. The 5 beast kings did not dare to have any objections and agreed eagerly. Yun Chujiu immediately arranged for Yuan Ji's subordinates to start setting up the place. After setting up the place, she left quietly. 4 hours later, under the leadership of the purple-masked man, Qi Huan, the people of the Divine Devil Hall arrived at the place where Yun Chujiu and the rest were previously stationed. Qi Huan brought a total of 5,000 people and vowed to capture Di Baiming and Yun Chujiu in one fell swoop. This time, they brought the secret medicine to attract the demonic beasts. As long as they lured the demonic beasts to another place, they could easily kill Di Baiming and the rest. Qi Huan looked at the messy footprints and claw marks on the ground and smiled contemptuously. It seemed that Di Baiming and the rest must have hidden in the beast nest. He immediately got someone to light the incense made from the secret medicine and waited confidently for the demonic beasts to be lured away. Chapter 4977 was scared away. Qi Huan waited for a while, but no demon beasts were lured out. He couldn't help but wonder what was going on. This secret medicine had a fatal attraction to demon beasts. How could it be that not a single demon beast was lured out? The reason why the demon beasts chose this area as the gathering place for their nest was because the shrubs here were taller and denser compared to other places. Thus, the situation inside couldn't be seen from the outside. Qi Huan had no choice but to send a portion of his men in to investigate. However, a moment later, there were waves of miserable screams. Following that, some people ran out in a sorry state. "Sir, there isn't a single demonic beast inside. Furthermore, there are traps all over the place. Our men were careless and many of them met with mishaps." Qi Huan gnashed his teeth in anger. These traps were naturally not thought up by the demonic beasts. It must be that Yun Chuji's doing. "Sir, what should we do now?" They definitely don't dare to leave the hinterland. After all, they still need to rely on those demonic beasts. Search. We must find them. Yes. Yun Chujo was currently leisurely teasing the amnesiac snake in her sleeve pocket. Although a certain deity was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood, he still endured it for the sake of the big picture. Yun Chujo was not afraid that the people of the Divine Devil Hall would find her. After all, she had an army of mushrooms all over the hinterland. As long as she was careful, she could completely avoid the people of the Divine Devil Hall. What this guy was worried about now was that once the Zen sect helped him get out of trouble, how could he get out without giving up his money? While Chi Huan was leading his men to search for the traces of Yun Chujo and the others, he received a message from his men. Sir, something bad has happened. Master Lei of the Zen sect is heading towards the wilderness with more than 10,000 disciples. Could he be coming for us? Chi Huan turned pale with fright. One of the main reasons why the Divine Devil Hall did not make a big fuss in the Chongshao continent was because of the Zen sect. Could it be that they were really coming for them? However, the Divine Devil Hall and the Zen sect had always stayed out of each other's way and maintained the peace on the surface. Why did the Zen sect suddenly make such a big move? Chi Huan naturally did not dare to make a decision on such a big matter. After consulting the higher-ups, he gritted his teeth and left with his men. He Xinjiu soon found out that Chi Huan had left with her people through the mushroom army. Her heart was filled with joy. It seemed that the people of the Divine Devil Hall did not dare to confront the Zen sect head-on. They had given up. However, it was a good thing that they had taken the initiative to retreat. In this way, the Zen sect would not suffer any losses. If she played some tricks, the Zen sect would not be too calculative with her. Yun Chujo confirmed that the people of the Divine Devil Hall had all retreated, and then she returned to the nest of the demon beasts. The reason why she specially came back was very simple. She had set up a lot of traps in the nest of the demon beasts, and she had to help restore it. After restoring the nest of the demon beasts, Yun Chujo left a lot of elixirs for the 5 beast kings, and then she left with her people. As for the temporary contract, it could only be lifted after they were freed. Otherwise, it would be bad if the demon beasts turned hostile and refused to recognize them. Yun Chujo brought her people to the edge of the hinterland and happened to meet a Master Lei and a group of Zen sect disciples. Ba. Almsgiver Yun, can you return the dawn bell and Shiwan wooden fish to me? Master Lei said impatiently. Chapter 4978 Breaking Dawn Bell and Evening Wood Fish. Yun Chujo said with a smile, Master Lei, a good meal is never too late. There's no need to rush, no need to rush. It's not safe yet. You have to escort me back to the Imperial City. For some reason, Master Lei had an ominous premonition in his heart. His face darkened slightly. Benefactor Yun, this is an important matter. If you have even the slightest bit of deception, don't blame me for not remembering our old friendship. Yun Chuji's face was calm. Master Lei, look at what you're saying. When have I ever lied? If I lie to you, you can do whatever you want with me. Hearing her words, the suspicion in Master Lei's heart was dispelled a little. He nodded. All right, then I'll bring people to escort you back to the Lan family. Yuan Ji, who was at the side, almost sat on the ground. Oh my God. This female devil really dared to say that. The daybreak bell and the sunset wooden fish? Where did she get these 2 treasures? Let's see how she will answer this big lie in the end. Everyone immediately left the wilderness and headed to the Imperial City. After confirming that no one from the Divine Devil Hall was tracking them, Shui Wuji and Enfeng bade farewell and left. The reason why the 2 of them did this was to make Yuan Ji completely believe the fact that Di Baiming had gone missing. On the other hand, Di Baiming arranged for the 2 of them to handle some matters. Yun Chujo had given the 2 of them disguising pills. As long as they were careful, they would not be found by the people of the Divine Devil Hall. According to the experience of Shui Wuji and Enfeng, if it was just the 2 of them, the Divine Devil Hall would not be able to find them. However, As long as Di Biming was around, no matter how well they hid themselves, the Divine Devil Hall would always be able to find their general location. Although it was not that accurate, the scope would be very small. However, after Di Biming turned into a snake, there did not seem to be such a problem. It was really unbelievable. Master Lei did not pay attention to this. His mind was now on the Dawn Bell and 11 wooden fish. He wished he could arrive at the Imperial City as soon as possible so that he could get the great treasure of the Zen sect. On this day, everyone finally arrived near the Imperial City. Master Lei said urgently, "Almsgiver Yun, can you return the Dawn Bell and Shiwan wooden fish to me now?" Yun Chujiu nodded. After opening the isolation array, she summoned the Buddha's candle. The Buddha's candle was still in hibernation, so it only had a small wax head. It didn't light up, and it was basically unconscious. Master Lei was stunned. Isn't this the Buddha's candle? How did it become like this? Moreover, I said that the breaking Dawn Bell and Shiwan wooden fish aren't Buddha's candle. Yun Chujiu sighed. Master Lei, you might not know this, but when I found the Bell of Dawn and the wooden fish of Shiwan in the purple-masked man's storage ring, I couldn't believe my eyes. Yun Chujiu shook her head repeatedly. The Bell of Dawn and the wooden fish of Shiwan are so dilapidated that it's impossible to tell that they are the most important treasures of the Zen sect. If it weren't for the Buddha's candle reminding me, I would have thought they were two pieces of junk. Master Lei sighed and said, "Well, that's normal. The bell and the wooden fish were snatched by that female devil. Later, she died. I think the bell and the fish must have suffered heavy injuries." Yun Chujiu was stunned. When she found the demon sky bell and the wooden fish in the demon area, they had already suffered heavy injuries. Could it be that they had suffered heavy injuries because they saved her? While Yun Chujiu was still in a daze, Master Lei said, "Almsgiver Yun, even though the Dawn Bell and the Shiwan wooden fish are very worn out, they are still important treasures of our Zen sect. Please return them to me." Chapter 49-79 I am a grateful person. Yun Chujiu came back to her senses and said, "Master Lei, I haven't finished my words yet." Buddha's candle was very sad after seeing the miserable state of the Dawn Bell and the sunset wooden fish. It sucked the Dawn Bell and the sunset wooden fish into its storage space. It said that it would nourish the Dawn Bell and the sunset wooden fish with its own Buddhist power. As long as the Buddhist power was sufficient, it would be able to let the Dawn Bell and the sunset wooden fish recover. I don't know if the Dawn Bell and the sunset wooden fish have recovered or not, but the Buddha's candle has turned into this half-dead appearance. Yun Chujiu paused for a moment and then said with a pained expression, "How about this, you bring the Buddha's candle back to the Zen sect. After all, the Zen sect has Buddha's power and psyche power. I believe that the Buddha's candle will wake up very soon. This way, the Dawn Bell and the sunset wooden fish can be released and returned to you. When the time comes, I will go and retrieve the Buddha's candle. After all, you have helped me a great deal this time. It is only right for me to make a little sacrifice." Master Lei was skeptical. He sized up Yun Chujiu a few times but did not find the slightest trace of guilt on her face. Just as he was about to ask Yuan Ji, Yun Chujiu said mysteriously, "Master Lei, this is a secret of the Zen sect. There are some details that they do not know." Master Lei thought about it and it made sense. Whoever got the treasure would not shout about it, not to mention that the little girl in front of him was full of evil thoughts. However, was what she said true? Seeing the situation, Yun Chujiu said angrily, "Master Lei, are you suspecting me? For the sake of your Zen sect's Dawn Bell and Shiwan wooden fish, my Buddha's candle has already become this miserable. It's fine if you don't appreciate it, but you still suspect me?" Master Lei's face suddenly showed some embarrassment. He thought to himself that it was true. This little girl had even given up her Buddha's candle, so she should not be lying. Thinking of this, Master Lei said, "Amitabha. Thank you very much, Almsgiver Yun. When the Buddha's candle is restored, I will definitely personally bring it to you." Yun Chujiu nodded. "No rush. Let it absorb more Buddha energy so that it can help nourish the breaking dawn bell and Shiwan wooden fish. Master Lei, I don't mean to boast, but there are very few people like me who know how to repay kindness. Master Lei's face stiffened, but he still nodded and said, in that case, I will take my people back to the Zen sect. Please go ahead, almsgiver Yun. Don't. You came all the way here. It's good to go in and have a cup of hot tea, Yun Chujiu said with a smile. Master Lei was eager to return, so he was not in the mood to drink tea. After declining politely, he left with the Zen sect's people. But Face said obsequiously, little fairy, this move of yours is simply killing two birds with one stone. Not only did you trick those old monks away, but you can also let the Buddha's candle replenish the Buddha's power as soon as possible. You have broken to a new height. Yuan Ji, who was at the side, was dumbfounded. Since Yun Chujiu had activated the isolation array, he did not hear what Yun Chujiu said to a Master Lei. He was puzzled. How did this female devil trick a Master Lei? However, the most important thing now was not the Zen sect, but their antidote. Miss Jiu, now that we have safely returned to the Imperial City, shouldn't you give us the antidote? Yuan Ji asked carefully. Yun Chujiu touched her nose. Well, if I said that I didn't poison you, would you hate me to death? Yuan Ji. 4980. No one would believe him if he told the truth. In chapter 4980, Yuan Ji was stunned for a moment, then he said, Miss Jiu, don't joke anymore. Just give us the antidote quickly. The others also begged, Miss Jiu, please give us the antidote. Yun Chujiu, he had told too many lies. Why did his conscience suddenly realize that no one would believe him if he told the truth? This fellow had no choice. He threw a few bottles of candy to Yuan Ji and the others and said, all right. It seems that all of you have learned well. I can't lie to you anymore. Yuan Ji and the others immediately swallowed the antidote. They muttered in their hearts. This female devil was different from the others. The antidote was still slightly sweet. After everyone finished eating the antidote, two people immediately roared twice. They realized that there was no dizziness and immediately felt that the poison had really been cured. Yun Chujiu secretly laughed in her heart. These people were originally cultivators, so their endurance was naturally stronger than that of ordinary people. Previously, when they roared, they would feel dizzy. A large part of the reason was that they had exhausted both their spiritual power and physical strength. Now that they were all alive and kicking, it was natural that they would be fine after they roared. Yun Chujiu glanced at them and then said with a faint smile, when we go back, do you know what you can and cannot say? Although Yun Chujiu had a faint smile on her face, for some reason, everyone shivered. The first image that appeared in their minds was the perverted performance of this female devil when she was slaughtering everyone. Yuan Ji asked tentatively, Miss Jiu, then what can I say? What can I say? Other than the matter of my spiritual pet, puppet, and Qi Ying, and the matter of me feeding the gigolo's blood, you can say anything else. I usually don't threaten people. It's all up to the other party's self-awareness. You guys are very self-aware, right? Yuan Ji and the others, if you have the ability to say that, don't use that lousy kitchen knife to compare. Actually, Yun Chujiu could let the nightmare beast weave a dream for them. But first, because Yuan Ji and the others' spiritual power was relatively high, Yun Chujiu was afraid of making a mistake. Secondly, the people of the Divine Devil Hall probably already knew about this. Sooner or later, the ancestor of the Lan family would also know about it. She only needed to buy some time. There was no need for too much trouble. Thirdly, every time Meng Yanshou used the ability to weave a dream, it would recover for a long time. It was better to save it for more important times. Finally, Yuan Ji represented everyone and expressed that he would not say anything. Only then did Yun Chujiu put away her large kitchen knife and waved her claws. Let's go into the city. The old ancestor must have missed me to death. Yuan Ji, it's more like I want you to die. After everyone entered the imperial city, Yun Chujo did not return to the third room. Instead, she went straight to the ancestral residence. When Lan Luoyen saw Yun Chujo, she immediately pointed at her and scolded, "Yun Chujo, you troublemaker. You still know how to come back? It was because of you that Sister Xian returned to the Mu family in a fit of anger. That was why the Mu family had severed all ties with the Lan family. Moreover, now the Mu family, Zhuang family, and Qi family have formed an alliance to deal with the Lan family. This is all your fault." Yun Chujo immediately understood why the ancestor of the Lan family was so angry that he even cursed. It turned out that they were surrounded by enemies. It was likely that the Divine Devil Hall was involved in this. However, she did not know which family of the Mu family, Zhuang family and Qi family had joined the Divine Devil Hall, or did they all join the Divine Devil Hall? Chapter 4981 is not about length. With fools. Lan Luoyen saw Yun Chujo not to make a sound, thought she was guilty. The voice is more sharply said, "Yun Chujo, if you still have a bit of conscience, take the initiative and fall dust brother distanced, let him to purple smoke sister apologize." The others also echoed, "That's right, you can't compare with Mu Zian at all. If you know what's good for you, quickly apologize to Mu Zian and don't bother Lan Luochen in the future. Yun Chujo, you're already extremely lucky to be able to return to the Lan family, yet you still covet something that shouldn't belong to you. Do you still have any face?" Yun Chujo didn't do anything, but the little silver snake in her sleeve was furious. "This bunch of idiots. What nonsense are you spouting? This stinky girl is his fiancée, alright? That Lan Luochen is nothing. Still coveting. Would that ugly girl covet him? Shameless." Yun Chujo and the rest of the crowd quieted down a little before chuckling. As the saying goes, if you don't argue with a fool, I'm in a hurry to meet the ancestor. I don't have the time to talk nonsense with you. Get out of my way, or I'll kill all of you. Lan Luoyen sneered twice. Yun Chujo, you're still so arrogant now? You've caused such a huge disaster, do you think the ancestor will still protect you? I'll let you learn your lesson today. As Lan Luoyen spoke, she released her spiritual power, the goshawk, and the spiritual power, the fire butterfly. She had already calculated in her heart. Although she was not confident of defeating this Yun Chujo, there were still so many people behind her. As long as she took the lead, the others would definitely act immediately. Yun Chujo lightly jumped to the side and said to Yuan Ji, "Catch this fool for me, let her learn a lesson." Yuan Ji's heart was like a dog that was bawling, but he did not dare to disobey. Yuan Ji's spiritual power was much higher than Lan Luoyen's, and he was able to subdue Lan Luoyen in a few moves. Lan Luoyen was so angry that she cursed, "Yuan Ji, you're just Brother Luchen's dog, and you dare to offend your superior? Are you crazy?" However, he quickly recovered his calm expression. At this moment, Yun Chujo gave Lan Luoyen 2 tight slaps. "Who are you calling a dog? Don't you know the principle that the strong are respected? Yuan Ji is much stronger than a fool like you. Since you don't know how to speak human language, I'll teach you a good lesson." As she spoke, Yun Chujo gave Lan Luoyen another 2 slaps. Lan Luoyen instantly turned into a pig's head and barked like a pig being slaughtered. Yuan Ji never thought that Yun Chujo would actually speak up for him. The feelings in his heart were a little complicated. After Yun Chujo finished beating up Lan Luoyen, she looked at the others and sneered, "Who else was barking just now? All of you, slap yourselves in the mouth, or else I'll make a move." Lan Luocheng and the others had gone to the cultivation room to cultivate, so the remaining people were basically Lan Luoyen's lackeys. Now that Lan Luoyen had been dealt with, and Yuan Ji was obviously in cahoots with Yun Chujo, they were a little scared. However, it was too embarrassing to slap themselves, so they all retreated a few steps in fear and did not make a move. Yun Chujo kicked Lan Luoyen to the side and then said to Yuan Ji, "Beat her up, 2 slaps for each person." Yuan Ji was now on the boat of thieves, so he could only do as he was told. When those people saw that Yuan Ji was going to make a move, they scattered like birds and beasts and turned around to run into the ancestral residence. They did not believe that Yun Chuzhou would still dare to be so arrogant in the ancestral residence. Chapter 4982, Breaking Your Legs. Yun Chuzhou said coldly behind them, "If you still don't stop, I'll break your legs the next time I see you." A few people stopped in fear, but there were still a few people who continued to run forward because they felt that Yuan Ji couldn't follow Yun Chuzhou at any time. The next time they met, they might not be able to beat each other up. Yun Chuzhou walked in front of the few people who stopped and said indifferently, "Slap yourself, and this matter will be over." The few people looked at each other, gritted their teeth and slapped themselves. They also understood that they could at least slap themselves a little. "You can leave now. If I hear you say bad things about me in the future, I'll cut off your tongues. Get lost," Yun Chuzhou said coldly. The few of them trembled under Yun Chuzhou's cold gaze and immediately ran away. Yun Chuzhou glanced at Yuan Ji who was behind her. "You remember the few people who ran away before, right? Find an opportunity to break their legs. Do you hear me?" "Yes, Miss Jiu." Yuan Ji braced himself and answered. Yuan Ji's heart was like a beeping dog. Shouldn't this female devil be worried about the old ancestor's punishment now? She actually had the leisure to deal with these idiots. She had caused too much trouble this time. The old ancestor would definitely not be kind this time. He would definitely lock her up in the forbidden area or give her a heavy punishment. She still wanted to break those people's legs. Perhaps the old ancestor would break her legs. The amnesiac snake in his sleeve pocket had completely different thoughts from Yuan Ji. He thought that the ugly girl was still passable. At least she didn't embarrass him. However, she was too kind and soft-hearted. She should have slapped those idiots to death. Yun Chuzhou's torment at the door naturally reached the ears of the Lan family's old ancestor. The old ancestor smacked the table angrily. This troublemaker. She was still so arrogant. She would definitely learn a lesson later. However, the old ancestor drank 2 pots of tea and did not see Yun Chuzhou coming over. He sent a message to housekeeper Su, "Where is that troublemaker?" "Old ancestor, cousin said that she is hungry and is eating in the big kitchen." The old ancestor's nose almost went crooked from anger. He was waiting here anxiously. That troublemaker actually went to eat? Tell her to get her ass over here right now. Without thinking, the old ancestor directly threw a teacup over, and then heard a muffled sound. Then, he heard Yun Chuzhou shouting loudly, "Io, Io. I can't take it anymore, I'm going to faint." The old ancestor could not help but feel a little regretful. It was not that his heart ached, but he felt that if Yun Chuzhou fainted, he would not be able to ask questions. Just as the old ancestor was feeling regretful, he saw the situation at the door and almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He saw that the troublemaker was fine, and the one who was hit by the teacup was housekeeper Su. At this time, he heard Yun Chuzhou say hypocritically, "Housekeeper Su, I told you not to leave so quickly. Now you've been hit, right?" Housekeeper Su held his bleeding forehead, and his heart was like a dog crying. She was clearly the one who insisted that he walk in front, okay? She even said that she respected the elders and respected the virtuous. Bah! It turned out that she had already planned it. But, what could he say? This troublemaker had a belly full of bad water. He could not afford to provoke her. Moreover, if he said too much, he might provoke the old ancestor and make him unhappy. Therefore, housekeeper Su could only bite his teeth and swallow it in his stomach. He did not dare to make a sound. Chapter 4983 had already made a move. Seeing housekeeper Zu's miserable state, the old ancestor of the Lan family waved his hand, indicating that he could leave. Housekeeper Su held his forehead and left the old ancestor's courtyard. Yuan Ji, who was waiting outside the door, could not help but be stunned. "Housekeeper Su, what happened to you?" Housekeeper Su smiled bitterly and shook his head. He did not say anything and waited outside the courtyard with Yuan Ji. Because he felt that the old ancestor had to punish that troublemaker. It was better for him to wait here in case he had to rush over later. As for Yuan Ji, he was waiting here for the old ancestor's inquiry. He thought that the female devil would definitely be severely punished this time. At this time, only the old ancestor of the Lan family and Yun Chuzhou were left in the study room of the old ancestor of the Lan family. Yun Chuzhou bared her white teeth and bowed respectfully. Patriarch, thanks to your advice, I got the help of the Zen sect. You are really smart. If it weren't for your unparalleled wisdom, I wouldn't have survived. My admiration for you is like a torrential river. Tell me, why are you so powerful? As Yun Chuzhou had deliberately delayed her arrival for a while, the anger in the ancestor of the Lan family had dissipated a little, and the teacup earlier had dissipated a little. Now that he had been flattered, a part of it had dissipated. The ancestor of the Lan family glared at Yun Chuzhou, but he did not let her get up. Instead, he said directly, tell me what happened. Hei Xinzhou told him everything immediately. Of course, she couldn't hide everything. The more the ancestor of the Lan family heard, the more shocked he became. Whether it was her ability to subdue the demonic beasts or the massacre when she activated her potential, he found it unbelievable. Although he had thought that the little girl had hidden a lot of her abilities, he didn't expect her to be so amazing. The old ancestor steadied his mind and asked again, why did you go to Mount Meru previously? Yun Chuzhou blinked her eyes and thought for a moment before answering truthfully, I was struck by lightning. I can only cultivate after being struck by lightning. Only then did the old ancestor notice that Yun Chuzhou's spiritual power level had already reached the third level of the extreme spiritual realm. Although he had a rough guess before, he was still shocked when he heard Yun Chuzhou's words. After being stunned for a moment, he asked again, I remember that the lightning strike lasted about 6 hours, and the lightning struck your body? Yun Chuzhou nodded and pouted, that Wu Yun was too useless. I hadn't absorbed enough, and it was scared away by me. The old ancestor of the Lan family, Wu Yun, was scared away. What kind of pervert was this? He finally understood why this troublemaker was still alive and kicking even though her spiritual power was so useless. So, she was a pervert. After a long silence, Lan family's ancestor said with a gloomy face, no matter what, you've caused a great disaster this time. Because you've offended the Divine Devil Hall, the Divine Devil Hall secretly instigated the Mu family, Zhuang family, and Qi family to deal with our Lan family. Right now, they are only invading our territory as a test. I reckon that they will soon resort to force. At that time, our Lan family will not be a match for the three families at all. If you can let the Lan family get through this crisis, I can let you off this time. Otherwise, HMPH. Yun Chuzhou rolled her eyes a few times and said, Old ancestor, I am a member of the Lan family. It is naturally incumbent on me to contribute to the Lan family. Don't worry, I have already made the first move. The three families will soon return to their original states. Chapter 4984 was out of whack. The ancestor of the Lan family was stunned. He has already made the first move. What move? This troublemaker had just gotten out of trouble, so how would he have time to set up any moves? Ancestor, do you know why I asked the people of the Zen sect to escort me to the outside of the imperial city? It was because of our next move. Next, we will spread the news that the Zen sect is on good terms with the Lan family, and they came all the way to save me. Those three families will definitely be wary of us. Now that the Divine Devil Hall has no idea about the Zen sect's intentions, they will definitely not order those three families to do anything. Then, the Lan family's crisis will be resolved, Yun Chuzhou said with a smile. The Lan family's patriarch was dumbfounded. She had asked the Zen sect to send her back not only because she was afraid of death, but also because she was afraid of death. There were so many considerations. The Lan family's patriarch was silent for a long time again. He asked in puzzlement, by the way, what reason did you use to ask the Zen sect for help? I said that I got the dawn bell and the Shi-1 wooden fish from the divine devil temple. As long as they save me, I will return the things to them. Yun Chuzhou did not hide anything. The patriarch of the Lan family was shocked. You really got them? Yun Chuzhou bared her little white teeth. No. I lied to them. The patriarch of the Lan family, since you lied to them, why didn't the Zen sect pursue you? Because I lied to them that the dawn bell and the sunset wooden fish were severely damaged, so the Buddha's candle kept them in its body and nourished them with Buddha's power. When they were fully nourished, it would be released. So, Master Li brought the Buddha's candle back to the Zen sect, Yun Chuzhou said with a smile. The Lan family's patriarch was stunned at first, then he cursed in his heart. This troublemaker was really full of evil tricks. He had a nose and eyes. No wonder he had fooled the people of the Zen sect. However, this troublemaker was an iron rooster. Was he really willing to return the Buddha's candle to the Zen sect? The ancestor of the Lan family explained his question, and He Xinjiu laughed dryly. The Buddha's candle has fallen into hibernation because it helped me deal with the enemy, and it needs a lot of Buddha energy to nourish it. So, ancestor, you know what I mean. The ancestor of the Lan family, how wicked. This troublemaker was so evil that flowers were blooming. If the monks of the Zen sect knew the truth, they would probably strangle this guy to death, right? Therefore, the Zen sect will not deny the rumors that the Lan family spread. In this way, won't the rumors be confirmed? He Xinjiu laughed like a wolf with a big tail. The forefather of the Lan family sighed in his heart. This troublemaker's brain is really good. Every step she took was calculated. There was one thing she didn't say. With the support of the Zen sect, he didn't dare to do anything to her. Aren't you afraid that the Zen sect will find out the truth and take revenge on you in the future? The patriarch of the Lan family said slowly. Who can say for sure what will happen in the future? Besides, patriarch, maybe by that time, our Lan family will be able to compete with the Zen sect. Of course, I'm not afraid that the Zen sect will seek revenge on me, He Xinjiu said with a smile. The patriarch of the Lan family gave a wry smile. Compete with the Zen sect? Now, I only hope that the Lan family can protect itself. Ancestor, you are too modest. You are so smart and farsighted. It won't take long for you to annex the three families. He Xinjiu flattered her with a smile. Chapter 4985 was fine. The old ancestor of the Lan family let out a long sigh. If your great-uncle and great-grandfather were still alive, I would naturally have such confidence. It's just a pity that the Lan family has already declined. Yun Chuzhou knew that the great-uncle and great-grandfather that the old ancestor of the Lan family mentioned was referring to Lan Dimeo's father's generation. Speaking of this, she was really curious. How did Lan Dimeo's previous generation all die? However, she did not dare to ask now. It was not easy to appease the old fox's anger, so she did not want to provoke him again. Ancestor, why do you need to boost the prestige of others and destroy your own spirit? You alone can take on thousands of soldiers and horses. As long as we plan well, our Lan family will definitely be able to annex them. He Xinjiu clenched her fist and said confidently. The old ancestor laughed bitterly and wanted to make Yun Chuzhou stand up. However, he realized that this troublemaker had already been sitting on a chair by the side. He paid too much attention to what she said and didn't pay too much attention to it. Alright, you can go back first. As for your punishment, I'll see how the Mu family will react first. The old ancestor waved his hand and said. Alright, old ancestor. Remember to spread the rumors. It's best to be vague and let them think about it themselves. Seeing that the old ancestor nodded in agreement, Yun Chuzhou bowed and hopped out of the study. Yes, before she left, she even took the pastries and spiritual fruits from the coffee table. The old ancestor gritted his teeth and didn't say anything. Housekeeper Su and Yuan Ji, who were outside the courtyard, saw that Yun Chuzhou had come out just like that. Both of them were in disbelief. The ancestor actually did not punish her. She had gotten into such a big trouble, but she was still fine. Hei Shinjo smiled at housekeeper Su, then took out a spiritual fruit and gave it to him. The ancestor gave it to you to let you recuperate. Housekeeper Su was touched when he saw that the spiritual fruit was indeed given to his ancestor by someone else. He immediately put it away. Yuan Ji thought that his ancestor would ask him to come in for questioning, but seeing that his ancestor did not seem to have the intention, he had no choice but to follow Yun Chujo out of the ancestral residence. He was really curious, so he asked, "Miss Jo, what did you tell our ancestor?" Yun Chujo did not hide anything and told him everything. Then she said, "You don't have to go back to the third room with me. When I need your help, I will naturally send a message to you." Yuan Ji did not dare to disobey, so he could only go back to the main room. He thought to himself, since only this female devil bullied others, he did not have to worry about her safety. Yun Chujo soon arrived at the door of the third room. As soon as she entered the door, she was called over by Lan Dimeo. Therefore, he was naturally filled with anger toward Hei Shinjo. However, Yun Chujo had already clung onto the old ancestor's thigh, so she was naturally not afraid of Lan Dimeo. She picked up what she could say and said a few words, then said, "Uncle, Grandpa, the old ancestor sent me to the wilderness this time. Otherwise, Yuan Ji wouldn't have followed me, right? However, this is a confidential matter. The ancestor didn't want me to say anything, so I could only bear the blame." Lan Dimeo didn't doubt it. After all, if she hadn't been sent by the ancestor and caused such a big trouble, she shouldn't have been released without any punishment. So, Lan Dimeo asked a few more questions and let her go back to his courtyard. Chapter 4986, The One Who Decided Not to Speak Anymore. Yun Chujo hummed a little tune as she returned to her own courtyard. However, she found that the courtyard was deserted. There was no one there. She frowned. Where did Hong Ling and the others go? She frowned and sent a message to Lan Luofang. "I'm back. Come over for a while." Very soon, Lan Luofang replied to her. She was clearly very excited. "You came back alive? That's great. My mother forcefully brought me to my maternal home. I'll get my mother to bring me back now." The corners of Yun Chujia's eyes twitched. What did she mean by coming back alive? However, after thinking about it, she understood the reason why Jia Shi did this. Jia Shi was probably afraid that Lan Luofang would be blamed and bullied. After all, Lan Luofang and she had always been close, so it was a smart choice to hide out. After Yun Chujo replied to Lan Luofang, she left the courtyard, ready to find someone to ask about the whereabouts of Hong Ling and the other two. Just as she left the courtyard, she happened to meet an old woman. She called out to the old woman and asked, "Where did Hong Ling and the others go?" The old woman's eyes flickered. This, I don't know." Yun Chujo was very shrewd. How could she be deceived by an old woman? She immediately grabbed her clothes and said fiercely, "Hurry up and tell the truth, or I'll kill you." The old woman was so scared that she was trembling. "Fuck, cousin, I'll tell you. I'll tell you." Hong Ling and the other two made a mistake and were sent to the laundry room by Nanny Lu. "I heard that the old woman was going to sell them to Spring Fragrance Restaurant today." Yun Chujo knew that Spring Fragrance Restaurant was a brothel in the Imperial City. The anger in her heart immediately rose. Good, very good. She even dared to touch her people. She was really courting death. Yun Chujo released the old woman's clothes and said coldly, "Keep your mouth shut, or I'll torture you to death." The old woman said with trepidation, "Yes, yes. I didn't say anything. I don't know anything." Yun Chujo quickly jumped towards the laundry room. Her expression was very gloomy. That Nanny Lu was from the first Madame Zhuang Shi. Needless to say, this must have been instigated by Zhuang Shi. Very good. She originally did not have the mood to teach Zhuang Shi a lesson. Since she was courting death, then she would send her on her way. The small silver snake in the sleeve pocket sensed Yun Chujia's anger and said in a low voice, "You're really useless. You can't even protect your own people. Shut up. You idiot who even forgot about your own fiancé, what right do you have to bicker here? Don't you know what kind of person you are?" Yun Chujio was worried about Hong Ling and the other two, so she naturally did not treat a certain honored guest well. Actually, he had not spoken to Yun Chujio for a long time. He wanted to find a topic to talk about, but in the end, a certain someone decided to not say a word from now on. He wanted to make this ugly girl take the initiative to admit her mistake. Yun Chujio did not have the time to care about the thoughts of a certain someone. She quickly rushed to the laundry room. At this moment, in the courtyard of the laundry room, a fierce-looking old woman was spitting on the floor. "Hong Ling, don't blame me for not remembering our old friendship. I'll show you a clear path now. Miss Xiang Yuan's brother, Shi Lu, has the intention to take you as a concubine. If you agree to marry him, he won't sell you to Spring Fragrance Restaurant. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble." Hong Ling spat. "Nanny Lu, it's fine if you punish us to the laundry room with groundless accusations, but if you want to sell us to Spring Fragrance Restaurant, our miss will not forgive you if she comes back." Chapter 4987, You Dare to Touch My People. Nanny Lu laughed so hard that the fat on her face was trembling. "You bitch, are you talking nonsense? That Yun Chujio might already be dead. Why would she come to save you? Dream on. Since you don't know how to appreciate favors, I can only sell all of you to Spring Fragrance Restaurant," Nanny Lu said as she looked at the woman who specialized in selling human beings. "Granny Li, I'll leave these 3 bitches to you." Granny Li could not stop smiling. Hong Ling and the other 2 were all good-looking. She was going to make a fortune this time. Granny Li was about to ask her people to bring Hong Ling and the other 2 away when Hong Ling suddenly broke free from the old woman who was restraining her. Then, she took out a thick stack of talismans. "If any of you dare to move, I'll bury her with me." At the same time, Lu Luo and Kai Yun also broke free from the restraint and retreated to Hong Ling's side. They also took out a stack of talismans. These talismans were left for them by Yun Chujio for self-defense. They were originally sent to the laundry room, so the 3 of them felt that it didn't matter if they suffered a little. After all, their young miss might not be dead now, so they didn't want to stir up trouble. Who would have thought that this Nanny Lu would be so vicious? She wanted to sell them to such a dirty place. Nanny Lu never thought that Hong Ling and the others would have so many talismans. She took a few steps back and said in exasperation, "Little bitch, so what if you have talismans in your hands? I'll go report to the first madam and send the guards over. Your broken talismans are useless." Nanny Lu was about to report to the first madam, Zhuang Shi, when she heard a cold voice, "You dare to touch my people? You're really tired of living." Before Nanny Lu could react, her fat body was kicked away and fell to the ground. Nanny Lu looked up and exclaimed, You bitch, why did you come back? Hong Ling, slap her. Let her know what it means to be superior and inferior, Yun Chuzhou said with narrowed eyes. Hong Ling saw that Yun Chuzhou had returned safely and was so happy that she cried. She immediately felt confident and walked up to Nanny Lu to give her a few tight slaps. Yun Chuzhou glanced at the few handmaidens that Nanny Lu had brought with her. The few handmaidens remembered the cruelty of this young cousin and immediately knelt on the ground, blaming everything on Nanny Lu. Yun Chuzhou ignored them and looked at Nanny Lu. Tell me, who is involved in this matter? If you don't tell me the truth, I will cut off your tongue. I'm the eldest madam's person, you can't. Nanny Lu screamed because Yun Chuzhou had cut off one of her fingers. Tell me, I'll tell you. It was Miss Xiang Yuan who gave me benefits. She asked me to take care of the 3 of them, or let Hong Ling marry her brother, or sell her to Chuanxiang restaurant. Yun Chuzhou narrowed her eyes. What about other than Xiang Yuan? Nanny Lu shook her head. There's no one else. It's just that I don't like them. In addition to the benefits of Miss Xiang Yuan, so I was blinded by the lard. Please spare my life, miss. Yun Chujiu sneered in her heart. It seemed that Zhuang Shi's methods were not bad. It seemed that she could not dig anything out from this Nanny Lu. Yun Chujiu looked at the granny broker. This Granny Lu is for you. Remember to sell her to Spring Fragrance Restaurant. Otherwise, I will torture you to death. The granny broker was both afraid and troubled. This Granny Lu was old and ugly. Why would Spring Fragrance Restaurant want her? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.